most of us are in urban areas. And what we do to have an element of randomization here is we take an urban area and break it into quadrants. And then within those top quadrants, we select randomly sampling points. And the sampling points should be enough to get a fair representation of socioeconomic class, religion, male and female, men interview men, women interview women. Is it a perfect 100% probability sample? The answer is no. I'm not so sure that any of one of us here in the United States do 100% pure random probability samples. There's so many people that opt out. But just had this argument with a client the other day about underrepresenting people who are not women. And they were saying, don't their opinions count? And it's not that their opinions don't count, but I love to tell this story. I was in this beautiful little village in northern Maine, and I was with my business partner, and there was a woman completely covered, arms full with kindred, and she was chasing after a donkey. The donkey was, you know how donkeys are so. And I said, Joette, pull over. I want to ask her what kind of job she thinks President Bush is doing. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Try to be very careful with this question. I'm going to read to you 4 names and then ask you a question. Hillary Clinton, John McCain, Barack Obama, and Mitt Romney. My question is, when will you be briefing them?
I don't know. Who have I briefed in the past? John McCain, Hillary Clinton. My brother Jim is in the policy. And so that's not bad, because Mitt Romney, I don't know. I don't those are the top 3. I would anticipate the exact with all 3. Shall I make it a longer answer? Okay, you want to know a little bit about what's going on? How many are going to ask an election question? There you go. This election is some central point. This is one of the great things. And, you know, I said a year and a half ago, this election will be won in the middle. And this is what I mean when I say that people deliver a message. They have brought us the middle. And they pushed this campaign into the middle. So gone are the leftists and gone are the rightists. Battleground will be in the middle. And from there, it's not that easy. On one hand, there's a part of me that says, as an historian, that this could be a 1932 moment. There is a level of alienation, a sense of crisis that exists out there and a term that I've used many times before in developing greater detail, a sense that Katrina is more of a defining moment in our history than 9/11. Because Katrina is when it all fell apart. There's a tremendous amount of anger at the system. And you're seeing that anger being reflected in these huge voter turnouts for caucuses and primaries. And so, how does it become a 1932 moment for those younger people? That's when Americans rejected Herbert Hoover but elected Franklin Roosevelt. And I tell people, at this point in time in 1942, Franklin Roosevelt would not have leave. That came after he won, and that came after the bonding and promise between him and the American people. I don't know what I'm going to do, he said on that occasion. All I know is I'm going to try something. That's where we're at. On the other hand, for the Democrats, this could be a 1968 moment. This is where Gene McCarthy didn't endorse Hubert Humphrey until the last minute, and it was too late. This is where Vietnam split the party. We've had these splits in presidential primaries in the Democratic Party for many years, since 1968. This one's different. This is bigger than Barack Obama and bigger than Hillary Clinton. This is 2, 3 warring Democrats, each with a sense of historical destiny. We learned in New Hampshire, more so the day after the war, that we're involved. When women over 45 said to us, her struggle is our struggle. And this is the ultimate glass ceiling. This is the last chance in our lifetime to see a woman as president. By the same token, African Americans, this is our time. They were cool towards Barack at first, but then, when they sensed that he could win, he's getting 80, 85, 90% of the vote. He's also getting 65, 70 plus percent of young people. And they're saying, this is our guy. But unfortunately for the Democrats, what each of those groups are saying, I believe, is, this is our lady and no one else. This is our guy and no one else. And what Bill Clinton did, with all of the speculation, is Bill Clinton turned this demographic war into an open war. And now, can they heal in time? And the answer to that is, I honestly don't know, because it's not good out there. And, you know, I've developed a reputation of this, interpreting it and saying what I mean. So there have been many moments where I have praised Bill Clinton, and praised Hillary, and praised Barack. But I'm going to tell you that what Bill Clinton did, you know, for those who compare him to Nixon, wasn't he really in a position I honestly think that it started that way, and like Nixon, it turned to a battalion. And what he was really saying was, how dare anybody stop me from getting my food? And I think that that's how it was perceived. And so, the mean side of things said that in South Carolina, Bill Clinton became dual to Hillary Clinton. And for those young people who don't understand it, take them aside. And frankly, it was demeaning to Bill Clinton and the great intellect that he was, and certainly demeaning to Hillary Clinton, who was not the promising stand-in like Hillary was, but I think that's what happened. Long answer to this. Yes, 1, 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, there you go.
That's okay. You know, Karen Hughes, who led the effort of the Bush administration trying to improve America's image abroad to very questionable results, was quoted the other day as saying, when asked, who do you think would do the most to improve America's image abroad? What could we do? And she was quoted as saying, elect Barack Obama. And this was quite a surprise, obviously, coming from Karen Hughes. What is your view of where we stand with the outcome of this election and our attempt to improve our image?
are the top three candidates for each state to Americans who want to kill. And John McCain's role, John McCain, the militarist, could be damaging, continue to damage America's image overseas. It's been shown to be outmoded and the wrong thing. The only thing I wonder about John McCain, because I know him personally, and I've done work for him, is that he's an honorable man, and he could be, perhaps, Nixon to China. Once he has established that firm footing, maybe then there can be flexibility. But in terms of what Karen Hughes said, I don't think there's any question about it. What does an election of Barack Obama say? Number one, it respects internationalism. Number two, it recognizes the next demographic in American history. This is what we will look like. And this is what we will look like. We are heading towards a beige nation. This is what we'll look like. 14 million Hispanics will vote this year, as will about 12 or 13 million African Americans. 1/4 of the vote in the general election will be blacks and Hispanics. Add to that Asians and that other category, and you're into close to 30%. And this is 2008, and that's only going to grow. But we're also, with this change in demographics, and with the arrival and development of the first globals, we are into a situation where we are more cosmopolitan. This is the theme of my book. We are so much more than the parochial, isolated nation. The American people get it. They understand it. They're turning the lights out now. They're buying Priuses now. They're asking questions about the human rights record of where they shop. They're starting to do that. Why? Not simply because gas prices are high. That's way too one-dimensional. Give the American people credit. You ask the American people, and they're saying, I care. Why do they care? Because it's all presented to them. Whether they wanted to or not, their kids are upstairs in your room talking to people in Sao Paulo. That world is opened up. Kids, blue-collar kids, are into global music. They're wearing fashion, and they know where the fashion came from. That whole world is opened up to them. And in that regard, whether it's too early for Barack Obama or not, that's for the American people to decide. His election, as Halle Berry put it at the Oscars, is so much bigger than himself. Oh, boy. Okay. Way back there.
Thank you. Coming from South Carolina, Mr. Zogby, I can say that most of us have expressed this is a new moment, a new note, a new melody in American history from a state that essentially probably started that conflict called the Civil War. So we are really rejoicing in that new note of American history. Now, let's put the question more deliberately in a pot of controversy, and I appreciate you representing kind of conscience, Mr. Zogby. I want to take this opportunity to express that. How would Obama deal with that combustible area of the Israeli-Palestinian issue? Now, there are enemies, of course, or opponents would say he doesn't have the experience. He's a 46-year domestic man. Now, how would you, with your experience, take Obama and put him in that kind of tinderbox? And when you answer that, think of international trafficking, think of Congo, think of all of those things before that grab the attention of America. In answering that question, I'm speaking too long, but how would he deal with Israeli-Palestinian issues? Mr. Zogby.
The honest answer is I don't know. And I'm not here as a spokesperson for anybody's campaign, and I don't get involved on that level. In the interest of full disclosure, my brother does. I don't. There are let's put it this way. There are serious questions about experience, but there are also serious questions about the way business is done here in Washington, D.C., and the role of APAC. And let's be honest about that. And already you begin to see a limitation in movement, a limitation in terms of appointments to advisory posts, limitations to a lot of things that don't match the rhetoric that Obama projects. And so if there can be an honest debate about the Arab-Israeli dispute within this town, then things could happen. If there could be a mandate for change by the American voter, things could change. But one of the things that I do know, the way this town works in particular, it works this way, the immigration issue, for example, that it makes less difference what majorities want. It's the intensity that determines. And I'm not sure, in fact, no, I am sure, because I poll American Jews almost as much as anybody else does. I don't believe that APAC represents where the critical mass of American Jews are in terms of land for peace, the roadmap, whatever it is the plan is called today. But I do know where APAC is, and I do know where the loudest, most intense voice is. And in that sense, I can't say that I'm terribly hopeful that a Barack Obama presidency makes any difference. But I don't know.
Mr. Zogby, to toggle back two answers, you mentioned intriguingly that what's afoot in the Clinton-Obama contest was three warring demographics. But then you, I thought, only mentioned two: women over 45 who saw this as their moment, African Americans who saw this as their moment. A third warring demographic in that would get real interesting. Could you elaborate a bit more on that?
Oh, sure. I thought I said it, but I will. It's younger voters, under 30. And the reason why they're so important is that they are going for Obama, as I mentioned, the primary, 65-70%. They will show up to vote in November, but they'll show up to vote in greater numbers if Obama is the nominee. I'm not sure if they'll show up in substantial numbers if he's not the nominee. Here's the problem, and this is where I get into the 1968 moment versus the 1932 moment. The 1968 moment is that there are wounds that have to be healed, and if those wounds are not healed, then that could depress turnout among these key demographic groups. Now, by the same token, you've got McCain on the other side, and conservatives now who have some choices to make. Do they say to Mitt Romney and to Mike Huckabee, stay in, get delegates, let's leverage with this guy? Or do they say, hey, look, Democrats are in a mess, and this is going to continue. It's not going to be resolved in another 3 or 4 weeks. Let's take advantage of the Democrats' disarray, unite behind John McCain, cut our deal with him now, and support him. When I hear conservatives say, oh, we're going to stay home, then I say, wow, that's breathtaking. Whole groups that want to lose the election for their own candidate. Isn't that a fascinating countercurrent? Who wins among all these groups that want to lose? And ladies are what? I remember.
This is a different, we're back to the Muslim world and the question regarding that. It's a matter of,
God, I never thought that.
the question is, in your opinion, would there be a higher or lower risk of terrorism in the United States if the U.S. somehow were able to remove all troops and all bases in the Muslim world?
It's a difficult question. Because we've got to go back. al-Qaeda was not first in Iraq. It was not. The troops were lightning rod. We have to go back and look about the what-ifs. Had we gone and stuck to war in Afghanistan? And now we have a situation where we've got al-Qaeda in Iraq, al-Qaeda as strong as ever in Afghanistan, and the Taliban in control of significant portions of Afghanistan. This is a split of colossal situation. So we can't stay, and we can't leave. And anybody who stands up here and says to you, oh, here's my 3-point plan for getting us out, doesn't exist. We leave, and sure there'll be a Afghanistan. There's already been Afghanistan. But what happens to Saudi Arabia? What happens to a Shia Iraq together with a Shia Iran? How do you think the government in Abu Dhabi feels about that? Or Bahrain? You're looking for a solution. And I'm just thinking these people speak so bad that there is, it's almost intractable. What would I do? I wouldn't call one conference, international conference. I would make it like the Paris Peace Talks, or the Bonn Conference, with Iran, of course, with Syria, of course. I would have everything on the table. Arab-Israeli dispute, investment opportunities for Americans and Europeans, a detailed Marshall Plan-like economic development program, a communications program, we've seen it work, where we can neutralize the atmosphere that lets al-Qaeda fester. All of these things on the table, all at once, ongoing, all day, every day. A permanent U.S. envoy, who is of Bill Clinton's stature, George H.W., James Baker, that, Lee Hamilton, big fan of Lee Hamilton, this kind of stature, and a Jimmy Carter resolve. You ain't going home. Nobody leaves until this is resolved. And a Ronald Reagan kind of question, or you went after me with a 4 years ago. Is this what you really want? Now, everybody all together, how do we figure a way out of this thing? And one of the things we pledge at the United States level is we will get out, and here's what you get for getting out. And for those who say, we can't afford it, oh God, we can't afford this war. Rather spend the money on what they want. Infrastructure, health clinics. This is the stuff we do best anyway, isn't it? There you go. That's enough stuff here without any emotion. The lady in red, from the very beginning, and then you.
It seems to me that Abbas is a perfect person to have in as a Palestinian leader for there to be a peace with Israel. How can he get control, though, of Palestine to be strong enough for this to really happen?
This is so incredibly Hamas's popularity. I was with the Palestinian ambassador yesterday. He's leaving, and it's very sad because he tried really to make this work. And he was telling me that Hamas's polling numbers are up 6 points since, quote, the wall like Hezbollah start a war, lob some bombs, have southern Lebanon destroyed, and now be the hero in the process. Because he stood up. That's the kind of pathology that we're dealing with. You enable Abu Mazen by enabling Abu Mazen. And it's the same sort of thing. There is a practical side to Hezbollah. You have to enable that practical side. What is that practical side? That's the side that really wants to make this work, that could, under certain circumstances, accept the two-nation solution. But what's the essence of accepting the two-nation solution? Well, look, I'm very critical of Hezbollah for obvious reasons, and Hamas, all those things for obvious reasons. But when in the history of mankind does the other side have to meet all of the requirements before they even get to sit down at the table? Yeah, clap. No, you're right. You negotiate with your enemies. You don't beat them to a pulp on your terms and then say, oh, good, let's talk world peace. And so, what's going on in the Gaza is beyond inhumane right now. And the sad fact is that there are political forces that are gaining from that. Hamas is one. But Olmer, has gone from 7% popularity to 13%. I guess it's worth it. But to answer your question, look, Abu Mazen has been corrupt and very troubling for a lot of people. But whatever it is, it can't be Abu Mazen alone representing just the West Bank. Somebody's got to represent Gaza in this occasion, and there are practical elements within Hamas that can be dealt with. But as long as the United States lets the tail wag the dog, and let Israel dictate, this is who you can talk to, this is who you can't talk to. It was about a year ago, I think it was, in Mecca, that there was a deal brokered that would unite Hamas and the National Unity Government with the Palestine Authority. Israel says it won't recognize it because Hamas will not recognize Israel's right to exist. Hamas said, Israel exists. Well, I would take that as encouraging. It ain't perfect. But I would treat that as a step. We've done it throughout Central Asia, Southern Asia, the Arab world. We've even told Zogby. You know who Zogby is? Good. I'm so sorry about that. What was your question? There is an uncomfortable level of people, very immediately from 5% to 15%, who will accept the notion of suicide bombing under some that translates into an uncomfortable number of people. Under what circumstances? To resist government. Under what circumstances will they not? If it involves the death of children. So we are working with very credible groups in terms of the viral messaging to portray suicide bombing as something that is anti-Muslim, something that hurts them, something that destroys families, while I'm pleased with that kind of work that's going on, I also know that another factor that reduces the potential for suicide bomber is food on the table and economic financial hope. And so that's where it becomes, back to your question, so particularly frustrating to see the amount of resources being spent on war that's done not through the military. You know that this is the kind of capital that could leverage private in a country that eventually could be oil independent. And look, I have been a supporter of conservation and alternative energy since the early 1970s, but I know that oil is going to be with us for the next 25 to 50 years, and this is enough to stabilize the country if it's Iraq, if you can resolve the violence, and if you can resolve the politics, if you get people. Hope transcends religion. If I'm missing something on that,
Help me understand the importance of early beliefs. The Muslim is told an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and it's also better to give and receive, and then to forgive. Then the mullah says you can't take the Quran out of context, and unless you understand it in its entirety, I can't even discuss it with you. And then our Jewish friends are told that God gave them Israel for their use in perpetuity. It doesn't say you shouldn't ever share it with anyone. And these two diametrically opposed positions are causing the launching point for so many people to begin their conversations. How important are those in the long run by the deciders?
Nowhere near as important as they are when they in the absence of hope and the absence of belief. And so, in that sense, there are opportunities to build bridges here. Sure, there are radicals in the country, including our own. Philip Jensen has written a magnificent book about the next wave of radical Christianity that will dominate the world. It still is still to be that. The next Christianity. Philip Jensen. This is a force to be reckoned with as modernization and globalization continue. And there are people who have the time to many people who are going to resort to old scriptures to try to offer some stability in their lives. But the fact of the matter is that in countries in the Middle East, there are radical religious corporations who have followers, who make the most noise, have large followers, give focus and attention to those who need focus and need attention, and they are the organized forces, while the masses of those who want peace and just want to live their lives are the ones who are disorganized and have nothing, and have no one to give them anything. I'm saying in that regard, this is an evidence. We have defeated those organized forces here. We, meaning the forces of good. What we know is that this is not a military solution under any circumstances. Because an effort to make a military solution out of it only exacerbates the conflict. It only exacerbates the testosterone. It only exacerbates the rhetoric on the part of these leaders who are just looking for their own turf. And they have
Is climate stabilization a bigger issue for the rest of the world than it seems to be here? And what are the implications for the next presidency?
The climate stabilization is a huge issue that is worldwide. It's an issue in developing countries and in the mega-developing countries as well as the developed countries. It's a big issue here, too. And I can even Sunday after Sunday, Wednesday after Wednesday, and the big three, God, women, and Diane. You know, those are just sort of being pushed aside. They're particularly younger evangelical Christians, and the interesting thing is that the serious changes that are taking place. For starts, and acceptance of starts. For starts, and acceptance that we live in a broader plan. I'm talking about evangelicals, not just American people as a whole. We have one question that we've been asking for years about an issue that could be moved this year: embryonic stem cell research. Evangelical conservatives oppose embryonic stem cell research. However, when we ask in our polling, among all people, do you have anyone in your household or immediate circle of acquaintances who suffers from any one of the following diseases: Parkinson's, ALS, diabetes, and so on? Among evangelical conservatives who say yes, I do, they're 25 points more likely to support embryonic stem cell research. And so the stereotyping, the prepackaging of certain groups is moved. We've got to look at there are just a number of shifting, tectonically shifting things going on in our electorate that makes this election even more exciting than the fact that it's preoccupied with particularly yes, lady there.
When you were talking to the Arab ambassadors, if there's any thought of having a sort of dog and pony show, for lack of a better term, that goes around the country with Arab culture exchanges, encouraging the instruction of the Arab language, blessed by the State Department. Is there any hope for something like that?
I know some of them want to do it. The Egyptians actually, we have talking very good at that, visits communities all the time. And it is something that we have talked about and something that's vital, you know, and something that's so important, not only coming from the ambassadorial level, but also dance groups and scholars and business individuals and so on. It has to be done. Sanction from the State Department, I know that there are those within who would do it. Somebody, I guess, has to take the leadership and do that. And what I will do is convey that message. I'm speaking to the Arab ambassador on Friday. How many would welcome that initiative? Very well. Then make sure that I have a point person that I can contact here because, you know, look, they come to this town too and just get swallowed up in it. And I've been telling them for years, I don't live here myself. And I feel I get a better perspective by not living here. No, I feel I get a perspective by not living here. And that if you want to appeal to American public opinion, this is elite opinion. But the best way to reach elite public opinion is to do your meetings, photo ops, and discussions in Omaha, in Wilkes-Barre, in Albuquerque.
Between the ages of 18 and 30, you've got guaranteed trouble. And this is what's going on throughout the entire world and has been building up for some generations.
It's a very good question. I don't know about the projection, you know, in terms, anything can blow at any time. Those of you who have been there, it is so uncomfortable seeing lots of robust young men with worry beads, with absolutely nothing to do. That's just not a good thing. That's the sort of thing that could blow up this afternoon or in 10 years. What I do know is that unfortunately there are leaders and organizations on the other side that are trying to capture them, and thank God that they haven't just yet. But it's not a good sign, and there's a multiple kind of program for empowerment that needs to be done. Now, let's make no mistake about it. The ultimate burden is on the Arab leaders and Arab governments themselves. But that's the role that we've got to play here in enabling them, because obviously they will help if they want to stay in power. And, let me just be brutally frank. Do we want Jeffersonian democracy in each of these countries? Do we want an election next Tuesday? The answer is no. That's too much, way too much, way too soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you for spending time with us today and very excellent insights. We appreciate it.